Hello, everybody. I'm Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com. I have the pleasure of being your host for today's discussion. Sam, I'm going to start with you just to position some of the things that are going on in the international marketplace. This is very specific to Australia, but if you want to give a sense of state of the business internationally from what you're seeing, I think that's a good opening. And then we'll go around our group and do intros.
Sure. Happy to be here, Nick. So I head up real estate for IWG for all of APAC on the business development and estate management side. And what we have seen certainly around APAC is that there's been a significant growth and significant underlying demand for flex. This year alone for IWG, we have signed up to 700 new center deals year to date, which is a great achievement globally. In APAC, we're continuing to grow our footprint. Australia specifically, we are by far the largest operator. We operate close to over 55 centers across Australia. And in every major city across Australia, every major town and suburb, we're sort of in there. And what we have seen is that there's been a huge shift since the pandemic for people wanting to work closer to where they live. And that's what's really been driving this underlying growth for IWG. And we truly believe that's the future for the flex office sector.
Damien, from your standpoint, what has been some of these turns that have happened that have accelerated flex space and the growth in the marketplace?
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and thanks for hosting us. And thank you to our audience for dialing in today, and welcome to Tanya, our partner, who we'll get to in a moment. Yeah, look, if broadly, Nick, if you go back, pre-pandemic, it was digitalization that was, fueling this growth. The ability, for you to be in the US, Sam in Singapore, Tanya in Perth, myself in Sydney, to connect seamlessly and have a good chat, that was already driving the growth and the changes, material changes in how people were working and wanted to work going forward. Of course, the pandemic hit. There was a pause broadly across the globe while everyone tried to assess what was going on. But I would also say a collective sigh from tens of millions of workers, because finally there was a moment in time where they could genuinely justify, okay, I don't have to go into the office 5 days a week. I can work from home. I have to work from home legally, in particular in markets like Melbourne, where they were locked down for a long period of time. And what people realized is that they were pretty happy. Productivity broadly didn't drop off. Businesses didn't implode. And so it was a real inflection point in the way people viewed working, people being employees. And of course, whilst we thought the pandemic might come and go, it went on for such a period of time that these became habits, right? And so as we've come out of that now, the world's somewhat normalizing. The thought of going back for a lot of employees to go back 5 days of the week to a central HQ, seems really odd. And so yes, the HQ absolutely has a place, clearly, but 5 days a week, no. And so back to Sam's opening comment, that live, work, play closer to home, people found that they became connected more with their local communities during the pandemic, actually had more engagement, more family time, and realized that they could do both, right? And I guess we'll get to more of the spin-off of that through the conversation, but the impacts of that on productivity, cost and risk for employers, also the impact on the planet, etc. So a lot of material upside going forward. And we're really excited about that. That's what's fanning the growth for our business going forward.
Damien, one quick follow-up question. Like, you set this up perfectly, that this is what's happening on the employee and employer standpoint, but at the same point, the landlord/building owner is also saying, okay, while this whole disruption's taking place, where do we start fitting in? How have you seen those two intersect, and has that helped propel some of IWG's growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, in particular, if I just talk Australia, right, prior to the pandemic, we'd have well over a decade of really, really strong growth, pretty high occupancy, low vacancy, broadly a strong office market, strong landlord market, right? And so, I think it's fair to say that broadly flex operators, whilst the belief was that there was a partnership and cohesion between, operators and landlords. It really wasn't the case. It was more of we were just another occupier, another tenant in the building, in the stack, as it were. That has really changed, right? As the office market, has had some headwinds in recent times. Australian vacancy is now 13%. It's up a percent from the same time last year. And if you spread that across the states, some of the states are really facing some strong headwinds. More than ever now, building owners, landlords are looking, well, how do they diversify? How can we get rid of some of this latent space? As well as corporates, Nick, right? There's a lot of sublease space still washing through the system. And so as that normalizes, there's great opportunities for building owners, landlords, and operators alike. And that's what we're seeing, right? And in particular, Sam mentioned our network. We've got 60 centres. We're in the CBDs and the suburbs. We see genuine opportunity for growth in the suburban markets. That live, work, play closer to home. And I know you'll get to Tanya very shortly, but that's what we've done with Tanya and her asset, right? Is we've opened a spaces centre, a new product in the suburbs of Perth. Great building, good location, good transport links, and still within a drop to the CBD, where her members and guests, I guess our centre, but it's her business, right? But they can also drop into our centres in the Perth CBD. So a connected network, hub and spoke, absolutely the way forward.
Love it. Tanya, I want to go to you, and this is how I would like you to at least introduce yourself and then go into your answer. What's your backdrop, and then how do you intersect with IWG? Like, how does that relationship even get created? So backdrop, what's your background, what's your backstory, and then how did you guys get connected?
So, look, I run a multitude of businesses. Property is one component of that, and we have a construction company as well. So, I'm used to building assets and developing property portfolios, as well as a range of other things. Been in the franchise space for 25 years, certainly not in flexible working space as we know it with IWG, but certainly been in that franchise zone for a long time. So used to dealing with a franchise model and dealing with it as an owner operator. So very comfortable in that space. So, that's a broad brush background. Embarked on this project really out of necessity. So we'd outgrown our headquarters, looked for another location that was bigger, and did all of that pre-pandemic. Was unable to find anything that would work relative to what I needed for the size that we needed, and didn't want to make a mistake of purchasing a building that we were going to outgrow within a sort of 10-year lifespan. Very difficult to try and gauge that far into the future. Came across this building. It was very dilapidated, very run down, but its bare bones was rock solid. And thought, well, hey, there's way too much space for a headquarters arrangement. However, I need to do something with the balance of the asset. So we acquired the building, my staff took one look at it and thought, oh my gosh, what has she done? We don't want to move into that. So, you know, we then had the conversation about refurbing it and whatnot. Pandemic hit and I thought, oh my goodness, now what's going to happen? You know, the uncertainty that the entire world faced at that time was pretty dramatic. And of course, you know, we all navigated our way through that, and you know, I got over the COVID arrangement with you know, how the staff were working and how our businesses were faring, and got a degree of comfort back, and we rocked on. So we then commenced the refurbishment of my building, and the concept of being able to have some other people in our building of a flexible nature, because I needed to not give away our office space for, you know, 5 or 10 year periods. I also needed that flexibility if I needed some more space that I could actually take it back. So logically, it seemed like, okay, well, if I introduce the flexible working concept to my building, then that gives me the flexibility that if I need the space, it's mine to take back. So, and we obviously had no intel on how to put that together, but I thought, okay, well, we'll figure that out as we go. So I started investigating how we would do booking systems and marketing systems and how we would attract tenants, and I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. So I thought, okay, well, I'm ready to do this now. And off we went. And I put the hoarding around the building with, you know, look at us, we're coming soon, this is what we're going to do. New concept for us here in Perth. And the response that I got to my hoarding was amazing. So I had people phoning me, emailing me, dropping in, what are you doing? How does this work? And it was very much a case of, well, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work yet, but this is the broad brush concept, and I'm somehow going to put this together. And one of those people that came in off my hoarding was an IWG sales consultant, and she explained to me the IWG model and talked me through what IWG do. And I thought, well, that's a very interesting concept. IWG have obviously done this, and they have the intel, and I'm going to have to get somebody to run it anyway when I figure out how I'm going to do this. So potentially, you know, this might be an opportunity. So I was very, very dubious about the whole concept. And I said to this lady, Alicia, I need to come and have a look at some of these operations and see what it is you do. So we did that. We ferreted around and you know, I poked my head in here and there and spoke to a few people and did a bit of deep diving into this whole concept of IWG and flexible workspace. And I thought, well, hang about, I am not going to reinvent the wheel. They clearly know what they're doing. Let me put my toe in the water. So that was sort of how it all came together. Big shout out to Alicia, who worked with me quite solidly to give me a degree of comfort in this whole concept of how we can put this together. So, you know, that was a great experience. And then talking to IWG internationally about contracts and all the rest of it, it's like, you know, what are you guys up to? And again, got a degree of comfort that, you know, contractually we could have this this partnering arrangement work. And, you know, we moved on from there. Very familiar, obviously, in the franchise space. So when I looked at at their corporate identity guidelines, it was a no-brainer. We've done this before. We can make this work. And the challenge then was to actually bring the building together in terms of making the corporate identity work for IWG and bring out the Spaces brand. Now, the other complication that we had with all of this was that, actually I wanted to be in this building with my team, and we had to work harmoniously together. So, of course, I took the space that I needed. They then did the concept designs for the remaining space, and then we worked together to bring that building together. Conceptually, took us probably 2.5 months to get our head around the franchising, the corporate identity model, bring the architects up to speed, get the builders aligned. And fortunately, we had the building company, so I had direct impact on that, and then start to bring it together from a construction perspective. During a period that Australia hasn't experienced before in terms of the whole construction building market, and Perth being where Perth is, we sort of are at the end of the supply chain. So there are a range of challenges for making all of that happen. But we managed to put it all together, and we opened the centre third week in July. So we've been open. Our doors have been open for almost 4 months, and as we work through the different client needs, and we tweak our building to suit what's out there and what is required, we have been pleasantly surprised with the uptake. I walk around my building now, and 4 months from opening, we're almost, every office, or most of the offices have now got occupancy. In the business lounge is buzzing. I go down there most days and chat to many of the people that are in the business lounge. It's a very, very successful, very good experience. And what I embarked on this project to give ourselves some space and have some flexibility. It's turned out to be, a huge positive at this stage of the game. So very, very happy, and certainly working with the team at IWG. We've obviously got to know each other over the last, journey, and I'm looking forward to a very long-term partnership.
Wonderful setup. A few things that I want to follow up with on that. How much time did it take from the start of your process, so you meet someone at IWG, to the point that you make the decision we're moving forward, and then in totality, how long has the project taken to get up to speed?
So from the point that Alicia Coitus contacted me, and I started my deep dive with that, it was probably a 7 to 8 week process. It was very quick. I was very keen to either knock her down because it was a dumb idea, or move forward because it was a good idea. So I was absolutely not interested in wasting my time if it wasn't going to work for me. So I needed to establish that quite quickly, and certainly I did that. And at the point that I then started talking to legal with IWG, again, I thought, if I've got a crazy contract, then we'll shut it down, we'll move on, knowing that I had the interest that I had from the rest of the world. So it was pretty black and white for me. It was either this is going to work or it's not going to work. And the bones of what was being presented to me certainly very much aligned with where I was at in my original vision anyway. So that bit was quite quick. And again, coming to terms with a new brand, you need to get your architects up to speed on that. You need to get that concept firmly planted in your own mind so that you can actually manage this project. So again, from concept to issue for construction drawings, is a 3-month turnaround. So in this market at this time, that's a pretty quick turnaround. And you have to be pretty nimble on the ground. You need to be able to change direction if you need to. If this is not quite right, you need to be able to correct it and move on without wasting too much time. Because from a landlord perspective or a business owner perspective, the quicker you get your properties available and on the market, then the quicker the return. So, and then, after we'd issued for construction drawings, to centre opening was, 5 months. And again, in a very challenged market here, both from a labour perspective and a supply perspective, that's pretty good. And I look around at the buildings around us within, certainly the 15-kilometre radius, and very few of them have come on as quickly as we've come on. Well, so hats off to the support crew that I had within the IWG network. They needed to move at the same speed that we were moving at, and they certainly did that, and they were very supportive. And we couldn't have brought it on as early as we did without the dynamics of what IWG brought to the table as well. So thanks, guys.
Well, what I love about the way that you set up your story too is that you talked about how busy and how much energy is in the business lounge, that you walk down there and you see life. And so what you were able to do in that scenario is exactly what Damien was talking about, is even though businesses shifted, the life is still figuring out how can we have life as a collective. And that's an awesome part of the story. For anybody that is watching live, feel free to use the comment tool. I am going to put one up here first before I go back over to Sam. Tanya, just if you can provide some insight into this. Frank said, is it financially viable arrangement compared to long-term leasing? Do you have an opinion on that?
So very much so. It's early days, so I can't form a solid view yet. It's a different concept. So from being a bankable asset in terms of funding out there, the finance companies are very challenged with this model. And I think because it's so new, it's certainly very new to us here in Perth. And as I understand it, we were the first to sign with IWG in Australia. So the banks are not used to this model. They love the traditional leasing model because they understand it. So the challenge is that, if you're going to embark on something like this, you need to really understand how the model works. I certainly did a lot of work on the revenue streams that I was going to gain out of this, and the cost of putting it together. The conclusion I came to was that I believe this will be a higher returning asset than a traditional leasing arrangement. That is my expectation. My occupancy should be over the long term greater than a traditional leasing model. My involvement in running the building is obviously going to be greater because it's a partnering arrangement. So you obviously need to factor that in. And I think over time, the banks and the financial institutions will come to terms with a new financing arrangement. So early days, I'd have to say that my vision is probably going to work. But I've had the doors open not quite 4 months, so a bit hard for me to see where that goes. But ask me that in a year's time, and hopefully we'll all be very happy with the outcome.
Love it. Sam, I like thinking through the ideal candidate, someone who would be the ideal partner. As you sit back and listen to Tanya speak about her story and her experience, how does her experience align with what you're looking for in the ideal partner? And what excites you about some of the things that she shared?
Yeah, so I think Tanya's testimonial was fantastic, and she's the perfect partner that we're looking for. Someone who's, I guess, an entrepreneur who owns the building, who sees the opportunity that there's a shift in the way the office market is moving, and that's towards flexibility. I mean, what we have seen certainly across the board, outside of Australia, globally, is that a lot of building owners now are looking to put flex in their building as a necessity. It's no longer an amenity, but a necessity. And that's also backed up by, the brokers like JLL, CBRE, who have said, by 2030, 30% of office will be flex. So obviously, it requires a partner who is willing to take that future approach, that flex is the future, flex is here to stay, and is willing to then make that leap and that investment to put flex in their building. And if they're willing to do that, obviously they can do it themselves. Obviously, that's one option. We've seen that, but again, this is a very complicated business. It's not just building it and they will come. Mm-hmm. It's very much servicing it as well. And IWG has obviously got a very strong platform nationally in Australia, internationally as well. 83% of Fortune 500 companies are our clients. So we have 8 million customers around the world. So obviously we have that large marketing demand push to really bring in the customers, the demand into the office space. And if they're going to put flex in their office, I think for a partner, a natural consideration would be, if you can do it themselves, or do you want to work with a partner like IWG, who's been in the business for 30 years, who's been doing it, all around the world and all around Australia, from everywhere from Perth to Sydney. And that's a sort of a partner that we want to ideally work with.
Sam, one thing that I want to call out in what you just said that I think is important. Well, there's two sides to it. One is you talked about the complexity of doing this on your own. And so there's been plenty of copycat players that have tried entering the space without the resources. You talk about the depth of IWG as a business model, in that it's gone through many different economic climates and situations, so almost set up for the perfect moment that has happened. And you hear about Tanya talk about, like, look, we looked at it. Could we do this on our own? And ends up seeing the resources that you guys have. And you guys we could probably talk about the recent news in the space on competitor brands that they're going through, that they just couldn't figure this thing out. Is this a perfect storm that IWG, with all the longevity, all the knowledge base, and now the momentum because of the shift in the way that work is working, was this the perfect storm? And is this why the momentum is there, and why IWG continues to say, yeah, we know how to do this? Like, you can try doing this on your own, but it's not going to work. We already have all the intel. Yep.
You're absolutely right, Nick. I think that this shift to flex actually started pre-pandemic already. I think pre-pandemic, people wanted to have time off. A lot of working mothers wanted to have more flexibility. A lot of people who care for children and their elderly parents want more flexibility, and they might take a part-time job. What we have seen during the pandemic is that people can actually work remotely and can be productive. And coming out of the pandemic, we have seen now a shift that people want to work in a hybrid way. And that's where IWG's coined this concept called the 15-minute city. all right? Or in our case, the 15-minute commute, because the idea is that people want to work, live, play, have all the amenities and entertainment within 15 minutes from where they live. And with that concept, obviously having a flex office near you where you live provides that amenity to be able to go to a flex office near where you work and then go back home within 15 minutes. So coming back to your point, I think definitely there's been a shift. I think the pandemic, if anything, has sort of helped that shift, and that shift is here to stay. And IWG, having been doing this business for 30 over years, is been now perfectly positioned to take advantage of that shift in momentum.
Damien, if I'm connecting all these pieces together, especially last thing that Sam just said, if we're talking about the 15-minute city, the 15-minute city gets tighter the more supply that we have to offer up a solution. If I can, walk a mile from where I live and access an IWG property, then I'm going to continue to, my life will surround that. And so if I go to another city, I can go to an IWG property, and all of a sudden, the supply ends up catching up to some of the demand. Some of your opening statements mixed with what Sam's saying and mixed with Tanya's saying, the demand is still so high, and there's still plenty of room for us to have more partners come into the system. Is that part of the excitement of where this is going to go, that it's still in its infancy, yet it's so big?
Yeah, 100%, Nick. Yes, there's been some consolidation and rationalization as a result of what we've all been through in the last couple of years, right? But the runway of growth is ahead of us. I'll share with you, when I joined the business to lead Australia back in late 2017, the average term of our members, so the clients, the businesses in our centers, the average term was just under 9 months then. Right now, as we sit here today having a chat about this, it's nearing 13 months. Is the average length of the member agreement, right? So the way businesses, companies, people, if you're sole traders, are going to consume real estate now and going forward is very different to the way they've done it in the past, right? There's much more. There's a much stronger view on the agile approach, the sharing economy, and there's many big brands that are an example of that. Hotel chains, the way we procure transport with Uber, Airbnb, the way we go on holidays now. It's the same in the office space, right? So our single goal is to provide a great day at work for our members and guests, right? And so, but back to my point at the outset, we're certainly not saying that the office is dead, far from it. Of course, there's still going to be central headquarters. A lot of businesses still need that, right? But do they need a seat for everybody in one location going forward? Absolutely not. Even before the pandemic, the stats show that, it's about 55% of every desk was utilized at any given point in time when you consider people on sick leave, annual leave, traveling, out of the office for other meetings, right? So there's a lot of latent waste in that model, right? And to think that you've locked that in for 10 years with 3 to 4% indexation with the changes that we're going through now, it just makes no sense, right? And so the ability to hedge risk, remove some of that liability on the balance sheet, it's good for shareholders. The biggest change, Nick, really has been around attracting talent and retaining talent, right? So more and more, our sales team are not negotiating and having discussions with heads of real estate, heads of procurement. It's been heads of HR, heads of people and culture, right? Because it's about attracting people to come and work for their brands and ultimately stay, right? And so, it doesn't matter which report you read, whether it's 50, 60, 80%, it's a high number of all employees now say, we want some form of flex, and thank you, Mr. Employer, but unless you offer something, I'm not really interested, right? So, I've sort of gone round and round the circle there for you, but we certainly see opportunities going forward for that. The other point I'd say, during the pandemic, our suburban centres occupancy was broadly 20-25% higher. Businesses were reluctant to commute into the CBD, one, because they weren't sure about getting on public transport, but they were very happy, as Sam just touched on, to drive within 15 minutes of home, walk in, have a quick chat to others, but then walk into their office and shut the door. But they're still close to home should they need to get home quickly or pick up the kids from school. So a blended or a hybrid way of working going forward, we're really bullish on.
Damien, I want to say some comments. I just want your reaction or feedback to it, because I think there's two things that really resonate with me with what you just said. One is on the membership side, and I can relate this to our own company, that our typical Regis or IWG membership that we've purchased on behalf of our company has been on the individual. In my opinion, there's going to be a giant rotation, especially as we've hired more remote people, that actually that 13-month is going to continue to go up, because companies are going to look at saying, how do we buy a collective membership for our business versus the individual? And that's going to be a big shift, in my opinion. And the other comment that I'll make, and I'm thinking about what Tanya said in the beginning statement of this business lounge, forever, companies thought that they could create culture, but they can't. People create culture. And so when we think about the needs of humans, part of the reason why I go into the office space isn't to have, my employer have an iron fist over me on when I get in, when I leave. It's to be around other human beings, to feel like I'm a part of a community. And so what that's doing, and you can hear this in a business lounge, even Tanya walking down there, to get the energy and the excitement of the members that are there, like culture has gone way beyond the four walls of a business and into a community. And now that's actually happening in your footprints from my viewpoint. So, and any comments on my comments?
Look, maybe one comment, and thanks for sharing, Nick. I mentioned the way people consume real estate going forward, that pay-as-you-go model. I mean, we had to pivot, during the pandemic, because big corporates, very large corporates, Fortune 5s, were looking at a way to provide their staff who were working from home, some very adequately, but not everybody can work well from home, especially if you're in shared accommodation, or the kids are driving you mad at home, or that there's no backyard, whatever it may be. The ability to have a membership in your back pocket where today is really not working, I'm going to go to my nearest centre and work, but only pay for the days you're working. So again, pay as you go, pay on consumption. Absolutely the way of the future, right? Now, of course, for some that worked, for others, they want it locked in. They want their 6 months or the 12 months or the 2 years. I guess the point is there's flexibility, right? Mm-hmm. Use it as you please.
Tanya, you're a smart businesswoman. Clearly, you look at things very strategically. I'm curious now that, and you talked about this on your own headquarters, that we had to find a property that we've outgrown. We have to figure this out. Do you start thinking about scale with IWG now? Are you thinking about where this could potentially go, or are you at a wait and see mentality right now?
So look, it's really early days, but even from our own perspective, our corporate office no longer has a dedicated lunchroom. We share that with the building. It enables my own staff to engage with a whole range of other businesses, and it's certainly lifted my staff's interaction with the rest of the world. So from a engagement perspective, that's been an extremely positive situation. I obviously still have the ability to continue to grow my business. So if I need extra space, I just continue to use what's available in this building. Would I do it again? And lots of people have asked me that question. And look, I have to say at this stage of the game, it's been a pretty exciting project to bring together. and the impact that I've had on the community around me has been awesome. There's not too many days that I don't get a random phone call from somebody saying, wow, we love your building. Tell me about this spaces concept. So it's been really, really positively seen in the community. Our local council has been very much on board. We've got the universities that are quite close that have also engaged with us, the hospitals. It's brought the community together as well, and obviously we've had a very big uptake on this space. But from what Sam has said, we are a 8-minute or 10-minute drive out of the city, so it is very, very convenient for people that live close to actually have an office here. And then if they need to go into the city for whatever reason, it's only a very quick bus trip away. If they need to have a large meeting space, they've got the ability to rent the meeting rooms that are here. We are bringing online a Sky Lounge on our rooftop. So if they want function space, that will be available too. And they don't actually have to leave. So I think the key to the success is the building and its location. And certainly if this does what I expect it to do, then I will probably be on the hunt for another building in a equally as good location and work with the team again.
Out of curiosity, were there any hurdles that you had to overcome in the process to get comfortable with, and how did you get comfortable with those?
So, Nick, there's always hurdles in any business decision, and so this one isn't any different. So I think the clue is, or the key to making any business work is make sure you've done your homework, make sure you're comfortable with the concept, make sure you can work with the people, and you that's a very big unknown because unless you've known them for a while. But trust your instincts, and if you know that you can bring an asset online, then you can make it work, provided you've done your research and you're comfortable with all of that. Bring it on.
I love that. Let's go. We're going to go round robin to close us out. Sam, I'm going to start with you. Just talking to a ghost candidate. There's a landlord, there's a building owner that's watching this. They either watches this live right now or is watching it later. What do you want them to know about the vision for the next, say, 12 months?
I would say that if you haven't got flex space in your building, which is now considered, I would say, a necessity rather than an amenity, you should seriously consider it. Beyond just obviously bringing in, a multitude of different profiles of tenants, and as Tanya and yourself have mentioned, creating a community and a buzz right in that space. It also sort of activates the entire building. So by creating the community, it activates your whole building. And I would say that it also provides your traditional tenants who are on a lease in that building, if they want to expand and your building is full, they can come to us. And instead of leaving the building and moving somewhere else, they can come to us and use our space as a swing space and wait until another tenant from another floor leaves before they expand. So that's the beauty of our product and the beauty of having a flex space in the building. You can expand and contract as the customer profile and the corporate needs for the company as requires.
Appreciate that. Damien, closing thoughts to the candidate that might be watching?
Yeah, sure. Maybe for our audience, just to share some actual numbers around demand that we're seeing. So pre-pandemic, if I talk globally, we're seeing around 1 million inquiries or leads per year coming through the marketing platform and engine. Post-pandemic now, again, at a group level, it's about 1.3 million and growing. If I bring that back to Australia, pre-pandemic, we're pushing near on 1,800 inquiries a month across Australia coming through the platform. That dropped to circa 1,400, during December, January, so Christmas period. But right now, so the last 3 months, the trailing 3-month average, we're back to 1,700 inquiries again and growing, right? So I just share that to say that, it's really frustrating when the inquiries come in, not only unique inquiries, but also for our global enterprise team that are looking after the Fortune 5s that are looking for 10 seats in a particular location anywhere around the country, and we still don't have a center open, right? So, we I guess dovetail into Sam's comments, flex is a necessity. We see good demand to fill up those centers, and look forward to engaging with some of our listeners that might have tuned in today to see how we might bring what Tanya's been through to life in your own asset. So that's a closing comment for me. Thank you.
Damien, I'm going to let you answer this question that just came in from Michael. Suburban location, close to CBD, and transport is obvious. What other key attributes are required? Demographics of residents, population within 10 km, et cetera.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So a couple of points on that. The first one I'd say is, we've been modeling this. If you take the top 8 cities in the country, broadly, there's 18 million in population, right? So we've been modeling some of this on sort of, a center to 50,000 people. Even if you halve that or doubled it, so to speak, and we said that, it's 1 center per 100,000 of population, we can add another 120 centers pretty quickly, right? Now, on the point of demographics, yes, of course, and Tanya could probably talk more about this intimately with her build, but we talk about having, the right product, the right position or location, and the right pricing that will suit the demographics in a particular market, right? And so we've talked quite a bit today about Spaces, Spaces Netherlands Tanya's Centre, because that's the product she chose. It suited the building, it suited the demographics in terms of what the market would pay. If you've got a B grade building or an A grade, not a premium grade, you're in a market that where the demographic wouldn't be willing to pay for a Spaces price or a Regis signature price, then there are other brands under the family of IWG that you can pick that would suit that asset, right? So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully that answers Michael's question. Nick?
Yeah, appreciate that. Tanya, I'm going to close with you. Just final advice for someone that's thinking about this.
As a property portfolio owner, obviously diversification is the key, and we all know and love that concept. This is certainly diversifying our property portfolio, moving away from traditional leasing. It's a scary journey, but once you get the concept clear in your head, it's an easy journey to go on. And go and have a look at some of the beautiful places out there. I certainly looked at a couple in Melbourne as well as here in Perth, and thought this is an interesting concept. Don't try and recreate the wheel. Somebody else has already done that. Don't waste your time on investing in that technology when you don't need to. In order to run a business like this, you're going to have to staff up anyway. So instead of running it yourself, get an operator in that is skilled in this area and work on a partnering arrangement. So there's an incentive for both of you to make it work. And certainly, as I say, come back and ask me in a year's time. But early indications, my building is buzzing. Not quite 4 months from opening. I've got people coming out of my ears. I've still got a load of inquiries. The team on the ground that IWG have given me are complete superstars to work with. I'm interacting with them on a daily basis, and it's been a great experience. So can only say positive things. Ask me about the revenue streams in a year's time, and I'll tell you whether I've made the right decision.
I love it. What a wonderful conversation. Tanya, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And Sam and Damien, great insights. Again, wonderful conversation. For everybody that watched, feel free to reach out or share comments. But for Sam and Damien and Tanya, I'm Nick. This is another edition of Learning More about IWG. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.